Emma's hands trembled slightly as she dipped the washcloth into the warm water, wringing it out with practiced precision. The antiseptic smell of the private hospital room had become as familiar to her as her own perfume. Over the past 18 months before her lay Marcus Blackwood, the enigmatic millionaire who had built his fortune in renewable energy technology, now reduced to this motionless figure connected to machines that beeped rhythmically in the sterile silence. She had been assigned to his care since the accident that had left him in this vegetative state. A helicopter crash during a business trip to inspect one of his wind farms had shattered. More than just his body, it had left his brilliant mind trapped somewhere unreachable. The doctors had long since given up hope, speaking in hushed tones about quality of life decisions and the family's difficult choices ahead. But Emma never gave up. Every morning at 6, she would arrive at his bedside with the same gentle determination. She would speak to him as she worked, narrating her movements, sharing stories from her childhood in rural Tennessee, describing the changing seasons outside his window. The other nurses thought she was wasting her time, but Emma believed that, somewhere behind those closed eyelids, Marcus could hear her. Today felt different somehow, as she began the familiar routine of bathing his still form. Starting with his face and working methodically downward, she noticed something that made her pause. His breathing seemed more regular, less mechanical than usual. She had memorized every detail of his condition over these months, the way his chest rose and fell, the precise rhythm of his heartbeat on the monitor, even the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. Good morning, Mr. Blackwood, she whispered, as she always did. It's Tuesday, and there's snow falling outside. Big, fat flakes that look like cotton balls dancing in the wind. I think you'd like it. I remember reading in Forbes that you grew up in Vermont, so you must love snow. As she gently lifted his arm to wash beneath it, she felt something that stopped her heart. The slightest pressure against her hand, so faint she almost dismissed it as imagination. But then it happened again, a barely perceptible squeeze of his fingers against hers. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She looked at his face, searching for any other sign of consciousness, but his features remained as peaceful and unresponsive as ever. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. She continued her work, washing his shoulders and chest with even more tenderness than usual, if that were possible. I got a letter from my sister yesterday, she continued her one-sided conversation. She's getting married next spring, and she wants me to be her maid of honor. I told her I'd have to check with my favorite patient first, make sure he doesn't mind if I take a weekend off. This time, there was no mistaking it. His eyelids fluttered, just for a moment, like a butterfly testing its wings. Emma's hands stilled on his chest, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would wake him if the sound of her voice hadn't already. Mr. Blackwood, she whispered urgently, can you hear me? For several long seconds, nothing happened. The machines continued their steady beeping. The snow continued falling outside, and Emma began to wonder if she had imagined it all. But then, slowly, like dawn breaking over the horizon, his eyes opened. They were the deepest brown she had ever seen, filled with confusion and something else, a profound sadness that seemed to reach into her soul. He blinked several times, trying to focus, and when his gaze finally settled on her face, Emma saw recognition dawning there. His voice came out as barely a whisper, rough from months of disuse. You're the angel. Emma's eyes filled with tears she hadn't realized were building. No, Mr. Blackwood. I'm Emma. Emma Rodriguez. I'm your nurse. He tried to sit up, but his muscles had atrophied from the long immobility. Emma gently pressed him back against the pillows, her hands still damp from the washcloth she had forgotten she was holding. Easy, she murmured. You've been asleep for a very long time. 18 months actually. The confusion in his eyes deepened, and Emma watched as he processed this information. She had seen this before with other patients, though none who had been unconscious for so long. The mind struggled to reconcile lost time, to understand what had happened to the body while consciousness was absent. The helicopter, he said suddenly, his voice growing stronger. I remember falling. Yes, Emma confirmed softly. but you're safe now. You're going to be okay. Asterisk as the hours passed and the medical team rushed in and out, conducting tests and marveling at what they called an unprecedented recovery. Emma stayed by his side. The doctors had no explanation for his sudden awakening. Brain scans showed activity in regions that had been dormant for over a year. It was, they declared, nothing short of miraculous. Asterisk, but Emma knew the truth wasn't in the medical charts or brain scans. Over the following days, as Marcus slowly regained his strength and began the long process of physical rehabilitation, he shared with her the extraordinary experience he had lived during his coma. Asterisk, I could hear everything, he told her one evening, as she helped him practice walking in the quiet hallway. Every word you spoke, every story you told. You were my anchor to this world, Emma, when everything else was darkness and confusion. Your voice was the thread that led me back. Asterisk, he stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes intense with emotion. You didn't just care for my body all those months, you cared for my soul. You spoke to me like I was a person worth saving when everyone else had given up. Asterisk, Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. I was just doing my job. Asterisk, no, Marcus said firmly, reaching out to take her hand, the same hand that had bathed him with such gentleness for all those months. You were doing something far more important. You were loving a stranger back to life. Asterisk, the miraculous recovery made headlines around the world. Medical journals clamored to document the case. Researchers proposed theories about the power of human connection and healing. And Marcus Blackwood became something of a celebrity in neurological circles. Asterisk, but the real miracle wasn't the awakening itself, it was what came after. As Marcus regained his strength and eventually his empire, he never forgot the young nurse who had refused to give up on him. Their relationship evolved from patient and caregiver to something deeper, built on a foundation of trust and tenderness that few people ever experience. Asterisk, 6 months later, when Emma finally took that weekend off to be her sister's maid of honor, Marcus was there beside her, no longer the broken man she had once bathed with such careful devotion, but someone transformed by the power of unwavering compassion. Asterisk, they married the following spring, in a ceremony held in the hospital garden, where Emma had often described the changing seasons to his sleeping form. In her vows, she promised to always be his voice in the darkness. In his, he swore to spend every conscious moment of his remaining life proving worthy of the love that had called him back from the void. Asterisk, the other nurses still spoke in hushed tones about the miracle of Marcus Blackwood's recovery. But Emma knew the truth was simpler and more profound than any medical explanation. Sometimes, love really is enough to wake the dead, and miracles happen not in operating rooms or laboratories, but in the quiet moments when one human being refuses to give up on another. Asterisk, I've created a heartwarming story about Emma, a dedicated nurse who cares for Marcus Blackwood, a millionaire in a coma for 18 months. Through her unwavering compassion and daily care, including the gentle act of bathing him, while speaking to him as if he could hear, she becomes his anchor to consciousness. The miraculous moment comes when he awakens during one of these tender care sessions, revealing that he heard every word she spoke during his coma. Their relationship evolves from caregiver and patient to something deeper, built on the foundation of her selfless devotion and his profound gratitude. The story explores themes of human connection, the power of compassion, and how love can literally bring someone back from the brink.